Welcome, explorers. Let's jump right into this exploration expedition. Today, we're stepping way back in time to uncover the untamed past of the Cape. I'll be your guide through this interactive quiz journey, which is specifically designed to help you master your Grade 7 history exams. We're going to explore everything from the early settlements to the vast, rugged frontiers.
Here is our expedition map for today. 1. Slave legacy at the Cape. 2. Free burghers and Huguenots. 3. Trek Boers expanding borders. 4. Land dispossession. And 5. Genadendal and language. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. Slave Legacy at the Cape.
Okay, let's dive in with question 1. How many enslaved people did Britain actually free at the Cape in 1834? The answer is a massive 36,274 people. To put that into perspective, every single one of those numbers represents a real human life that forever shaped the region.
Let's tackle our next few questions rapidly. For question 2, where do these individuals come from? Well, they were brought from incredibly diverse parts of Asia, Indonesia, and Africa. And for questions 3 and 4, what new language emerged and what were its roots? Here's where it gets fascinating. Words from Arabic, French, English, German, Portuguese, Malay, and Khoisan all mixed together with Dutch to create a completely new language, Afrikaans.
Now, questions 5 and 6 look at beliefs. This brilliantly illustrates the clash and blending of different faiths at the Cape. Slaves arriving from the East introduced the great national religion of Islam to the region. At the exact same time, European settlers were practicing Christianity, while the indigenous Khoikhoi and Xhosa people followed their own deeply rooted traditional African religions.
This brings us to questions 7 and 8. Why was faith so absolutely crucial to the enslaved people, and how did their labor impact the region? You see, for enslaved people, faith gave them a powerful sense of identity. It reminded them of the homelands they were forced to leave behind. And their labor, under the guidance of imported winemakers, their grueling hard work literally built the world-famous fruit and wine farms that South Africa still heavily relies on for global exports today. It's a huge legacy.
To wrap up Section 1 with questions 9 and 10, just look at these vibrant physical and culinary contributions. Beyond agriculture, enslaved craftsmen built that iconic Cape Dutch architecture and handmade furniture you still see today. And for food, they introduced samosas, baboti, delicious curries, Coke Sisters, and sosatis. I mean, these are absolute staples today.
Section 2. The Free Burghers and Huguenots. Let's shift our focus. For questions 11 through 13, picture this. It's 1657, and the VOC, the Dutch East India Company, gives 11 families 4-hectare farms. Why did they do this, and what were the benefits? Purely to supply fresh food to passing ships. It was a strategic move. To help them succeed, they were given 12 years tax-free, plus farm tools, guns, and ammo. In return, they produced fruit, vegetables, wheat, tobacco, wine, and meat. But as we see in questions 14 and 15, these free burghers weren't actually all that free. The VOC acted as a strict monopoly. They controlled all the prices and forced these farmers to sell exclusively to them, no outside trading. Despite that heavy control, by 1795, their population had absolutely exploded to 20,000. About 7,000 of them were farmers, while the rest became masons, bakers, tailors, and merchants.
This brings us to a really dramatic turning point in our expedition with question 16. Do you know why the Calvinist French Huguenots risked absolutely everything to flee King Louis XIV's France in 1688?
The answer is severe religious persecution. The king demanded that only Roman Catholics remain in France, so the Calvinists fled the very real threat of death. Now for question 17. Why were they welcomed at the Cape? Well, Governor Simon van der Stel eagerly took in 200 of them because, frankly, early Cape wine was terrible, and he desperately needed these expert French winemakers to come in and improve the quality.
Section 3. The Expansion of European Borders. We are now following the trail of the Trek Boers.
For questions 18 and 19, let's look at how they traveled. Imagine these Dutch, German, and French burghers packing up their entire lives into ox wagons. They ventured deep into the interior to escape the VOC's strict rules and find better grazing. But here's the thing, they didn't do it alone. They relied entirely on enslaved people to herd the animals, chop wood, wash clothes, clear these rugged, pathless terrains, and pitch their tents.
Questions 20 and 21 reveal a massive shift.
The VOC simply lost control. They didn't have enough officials or soldiers, and there were literally no roads to follow these migrating farmers. This unchecked expansion led directly to fierce, inevitable clashes over resources. They collided head-on with the Xhosa people in the east and the Khoikhoi in the north.
Let's make sure we clearly define the key term for question 22. What does it mean to be a nomadic stock farmer? It means they lived constantly on the move. They never stayed permanently in one location, forever chasing the next source of water and good grazing grass, just to keep their livestock and themselves alive.
Questions 23 and 24 help us build a picture of their day-to-day survival. When they stopped at a river for a season, they'd build temporary mud huts with reed roofs, make their own leather clothes, hunt game, and plant vegetables. Once a year, they'd make the long trek back to the Cape to freely trade skins and ivory for gunpowder, coffee, and sugar. And the best part for them, they were finally able to negotiate their own prices.
Section 4. Land dispossession and consequences. This is a crucial chapter.
Question 25 is absolutely essential for your exams. Land dispossession. What is it? It's the act of taking land away from its people. And at the Cape, this sparked massive, tragic wars because every single group, the Trekboers, the San, the Khoikhoi, and the Xhosa, desperately needed the exact same incredibly scarce water and grazing land to survive.
Let's unpack the devastating outcomes with questions 26, 27, and 28. Why did the Trekboers win, and what diseases struck the Khoikhoi? The Trekboers won most of these conflicts because they possessed stronger weapons, specifically guns. But it wasn't just weapons that turned the tide. 3 horrific outbreaks of smallpox and measles completely decimated the indigenous populations. The result? Within just 60 years of the Dutch arrival, the traditional economic, social, and political order of the Khoikhoi was almost completely destroyed.
Section 5. Genadendal and the work of Bleek and Lloyd.
Through questions 29, 30, and 31, we learn about a missionary named George Schmidt. He founded Genadendal in 1738 to help the impoverished Khoikhoi. Now, the local Dutch Reformed clergy were furious about this, because he wasn't officially ordained, but he was baptizing converts anyway. Despite that pushback, Genadendal had a beautiful impact. It became this large, self-sufficient community that saved many from poverty and genuinely helped restore their lost pride.
For questions 32 and 33, picture this incredible academic rescue mission back in 1870. Wilhelm Bleek and Lucy Lloyd started a massive project to learn, write down, and protect the San language from total extinction. They learned it directly from San prisoners, and let me tell you, it was incredibly difficult to document because the language is filled with these complex, unique click sounds.
We end our explainer expedition today with question 34. By working so hard to write down the language, Bleek and Lloyd didn't just save words. They preserved the San's personal stories, their deep beliefs, rich customs, traditions, and even translations of their ancient rock art. So, as you head into your exams, I want to leave you with this. Without those preserved stories, how much of our human history at the Cape would have been lost to the sands of time forever? Good luck studying, explorers.